Next from the Philadelphia Inquirer, our man Keith Pompey joins us. Keith, good morning, brother. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, y'all.
Thanks for coming on. We know last week you joined Kevin Cooney and you suggested that the Sixers should shut down Joel Embiid. Then we get the report from Shams last night that they're trying alternative options on the injured knee. I think there's one option, and I agree with you, to shut him down. But what could these alternative options be if what they've already tried hasn't worked, including daily injections?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of that was, because if you notice, he said alternative options, basically surgery. So the other things that they were doing for him, the treatments and the monitoring and monitoring it, basically wasn't working. So I guess one alternative option could be just shut them down, right? And then just let them rest and then have surgery, or basically just have season-ending surgery and then rest after that. To me, those seem like the best options that they could have for him. But the only problem is, how many times are you going to keep operating on a knee, right? How much, how much stuff does he still have in that knee, right? But to me, the best option would be surgery and followed by rest, or just shutting them down completely and seeing if it will heal over time.
Keith, it's one of the things right now, the frustration is so high. And my wife always tell me, put something down, think about it before you make any kind of decisions because you're frustrated. How frustrated are the Sixers with the whole situation and with some of the individuals involved?
I think extremely, but I also think that, reality kind of hit them the last couple games, right? Because let's face it, as bad as they were playing, they were never totally out. And then you also look at it and you saw how the 76ers were 7-3 at one point with the big three playing, and then, one of those wins were against Boston, and then they beat Cleveland, as an undermanned squad. So you look at it and you say to yourself, hey, the 76ers are going to be a team that you don't want to play them in the playoffs. If Embiid comes back okay and Paul George plays well, that they're going to be a tough out. And then once they came back, they lost to teams that were struggling ball clubs. So now you look at it and it's frustrating. And I think the big thing was, we look at it against the Brooklyn Nets. If we're going to be honest, the Sixers came back and played well without Joel Embiid in that fourth quarter. Right. And that's something that people can't imagine, would never have said would have happened. But it did. And he was benched. And I think the frustration part is okay, for him is, wow, I can't do what I used to do. And for the 76ers, it's our championship hopes are probably gone, because this is against a Brooklyn Nets team that was more depleted than we were. And in addition to that, it was a tanking Brooklyn Nets team. We can't beat the elite teams right now. So that's where the frustration is.
And look, I know Daryl Morey has to say the right thing, especially in front of a camera. And he dropped the line of, if you squint, we could still be a playoff team. Keith, I've been squinting for a long time. I don't see anything. Look, I get it. They beat the Celtics in a one-off. They beat the Cavs in a one-off. Does Daryl Morey look himself in the mirror and say, hey, if Embiid is at 75%, we could beat those teams in a 7-game series?
That's a great question, and the reason why is a great question because, come on, you guys have been around sports for a long time, and when stuff is going awry and going left, you always want to be that guy that exudes confidence, especially when you have a fan base like Philadelphia, right? So he said that, and I do believe that what they felt like, what he felt like he knew it would be tough. But when you look at it and you saw how they did play them in that one-off, you are correct. It was a one-off. And then you saw how they were up 16 against Boston, the one time late, that they felt that they had a chance. Because, when you think of it, if we're going to be real, if we go back a couple weeks and you think of it and you're saying, okay, the 8th seed, the Toronto Raptors, the Sixers, or the Brooklyn Nets or the Chicago Bulls? Who do you don't want to play? And if I'm Cleveland or if I'm Boston, I'm like, I don't want to play the Sixers just because on paper what they have. But we have since seen, since he made those comments, that maybe the Sixers are the team that everyone wants to play. But when he made it, it was one of those things where, yes, it would be hard for them to win a playoff series, but at the same time, you had a big three, while these other teams had like two-way players and G leaguers, trying to make a name for themselves.
Keith, do you think that there would be a huge market out there, or a big market, a medium market for Joel Embiid's services if he went and got surgery this offseason?
Okay, here's the thing. Daryl Morey, a lot of people saying Daryl Morey should lose his job because of what he did, right? Right, giving him that extension. If you're a general manager and you want to keep your job, I think you might want to stay away from this one, right? Because if it does work out, yeah, you're a genius, but it's probably not going to work out. And then next thing you know, people are looking at you, man, you gave up that for Joel right now? You know what I'm saying? So, like, and again, I get it. Some people might say, hey, we need a championship piece. Like, let's just say, I'm just going to throw out a team. Let's say the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's just say if both of their centers got injured, and you have this young core, but you need Joel Embiid to be kind of sort of like Bill Walton was when he was with the Celtics, or like a older Kareem when he played with the Lakers, right? Well, the difference is he's making super max money, and these guys weren't. And then so like it's hard to make a trade for him, because even if he does have a surgery and the surgery works, but for how long? Right now he's 30 years old. We're talking about he still has 4 years left on that deal, and he has an old body just because of all the injuries. What is he going to be like when he's 32? You know what I mean? So if it was me, I think I would pass on that one, and I think that's what makes it hard for the 76ers, because they gave him that money that's guaranteed, and it's just, you may want to live with it, or you're going to have to eat it, because like no one is going to be hard for somebody to trade for him because of how much money he's making.
How hard has this year been on Tyrese Maxey?
You know what? I would say it was tough early on, right? And it still is tough. But I think that with Tyrese, we've seen growth, right? He's always been a great guy. He's always been a locker room type. But I think we've seen some leadership. Initially I think he came out there and they were losing. He was frustrated because he was trying to do so much. But now you look at him and you see him back to being his fun-loving self, and this and that, and he's seeing growth with teammates. So yes, it's been tough, but at the same time, I think that this is going to be a year that we'll look back and we'll see that, in the end, it ultimately helped Tyrese. You know what I mean? Like, he went from being the second guy. At first he was a third with James Harden. He went from being the second guy, and now you have to say that he's number one on this team right now. He's the leader. So, yes, it's been tough from a win-loss standpoint, but I've seen a lot of maturation and growth. Not to say that he was immature, because he wasn't, but I've just seen a lot of leadership coming from him. I got
to tell you, Keith, I didn't think I've seen some, I guess, cracks in the armor with Nick Nurse and his sort of, I'm trying to find the right word, poise. As far as handling all of this, he seemed very frustrated on Saturday night. Like, what kind of guy's showing up for work today?
A frustrated guy. I mean, think about this. So 2 years ago, or 2 summers ago, when Nick Nurse took over the job, right? Everyone was, like, excited. Nick Nurse was, like, the top of the food chain in regards to, like, coaches, being sought out, right? So, he could have had the Phoenix Suns job. He was in the mix for the Milwaukee Bucks job. Giannis wanted a guy who played in the league, so they went with Adrian Griffin, and he comes to Philly, and what he says is, and it's funny now when you look back at it, he says the number one goal is to get out of the second round. That's what I'm here for, right? And then all of a sudden he thought that James Harden was going to be gone by the time the season started. Well, it took a little while before he left, right? And then, you're looking at it, and the team is starting to gel. Embiid is playing well. He got that two-man game with Maxey going. And then all of a sudden, everything just became frustrating. Like Embiid got hurt, the injuries. And then you look at it, you go out there and you get these guys, and, some of them are older, they're not living up to it. And this guy came to win a championship, but yet and still, it's like he has either guys are past their prime or second-round undrafted players playing in the rotation. Paul George hasn't lived up to what he was supposed to.
Keith, not to cut you off, but insert Brett Brown, insert Doc Rivers, insert Nick Nurse, insert the next head coach. It's the same story every year.
And exactly. So,
and he has to write it every day, Salciunas. He's the one who has to write it.
And sorry for being long-winded, but that's what it is. It's like it's the same stuff. But this one is like you're supposed to be better than Doc, but you can't even get out of dude, this is the worst team that I covered when all things are considered. Because at least in the process, there was hope. They had draft picks, young draft picks that you could look forward to coming up. They had there was one, we got cap space. We could go out there and get people. And when you look at it right now, this team is 16 games below 500 with what is supposed to be a championship roster. So, and he's in charge of it right now. He's the one coaching it. So, yeah, he's frustrated. He's frustrated.
Yeah, well, I'll be looking forward